Hey, welcome to Read It on Reddit. Today we have some Ask Reddit, and the question is, what is the stupidest way you got a scar? I went hunting, shot, and now I have a nice scar on my forehead. The thing is, I've been hunting for over a decade, never been hit like that. I was too far from a medical center, so I had the stitches done next morning. Someone said, that knife is for cutting tape, so it won't cut people, and I checked. This reminded me of working in a dish room at my university. We had a strict no cutting utensils rule for things being sent back to us. They had to be hand washed by their stations. The pizza station sent back their pizza cutters and our dish lead yelled at them. The person from the pizza station said they aren't sharp enough to cut you and proceeded to grab it like he was a claw machine. It cut him on every finger, and we never had to deal with pizza cutters again. For clarity, the reason we had a not cutting utensils rule is they soaked in a tub before we sent them through the machine and we constantly were having to stick our hands in there. I had one chef at a place I worked at throw knives halfway across the kitchen into the tub. This happened even when he had to throw it between two waitresses. I quit the place soon afterward once I found out the manager was an addict, which is why he let a lot of this type of person work there. Dangerous fucking place. Lots of shit went down there while I was there. I couldn't tie my laces as a kid and liked to walk with my hands in my pockets. This led to me tripping over my laces, no hands to protect, and landing face first onto a stone step, the corner of which went right between my eyes, leaving a small scar where my monobrow grows. My foot was itchy, so I used a hunting knife to scratch it. When I was 10, I wanted to cut a coconut with a big machete, and on the first try I hit my thumb. Luckily I didn't hit it too hard, but I have a permanent scarf on my thumb now. I was in a cornfield and grabbed a cob of corn to throw at a friend. The leaf from the corn stalk went between my middle and index fingers as I released the throw and sliced the webbing open deep enough that I could see my tendons. That was 25 years ago and I still have the scar. Had a friend in high school do this, except the cops really were chasing them to clear out a party. I'd had to work that night so I didn't go, but when I went into town the next day, within about 6 blocks, I'd been flagged down by a friend to let me know he'd split his nuts clean in half. He had to get sent to a hospital like 6 hours away to get fixed up. I'm a chick and even I feel queasy just thinking about it. Grasses and corns are no joke. They will cut you and people don't realize it. One time I, an idiot, tried pruning back my lemongrass without gloves on. Cut the absolute shit out of my finger. Started bleeding, got woozy, almost fainted, and then barfed from the dizziness. It was so bad. And honestly the most pathetic injury I've gotten so far. My friend sliced his finger in a similar way peeling carrots, caught himself with the slicer, got woozy, sat down on a stool, passed out, fell forward, hit his head and got spine damage that required surgery and months of therapy. 3 or 4 years ago now. Still not better. Small cuts that make you want to pass out are no joke. Quick Google told me that getting dizzy after a wound is called vasovagal syncope. Basically the body overreacts, and blood pressure lowers dramatically. Causes for it happening include wounds, sight of blood and sudden pain. I started having this for the slightest injury after having my 3rd child. I once passed out on my way to check on my daughter when she slipped in the shower. Just the sound of her falling. She did end up needing a few stitches, but I didn't know that at the time. I passed out hearing a story about someone falling out of a tree. I hate it because blood doesn't freak me out the least little bit. Up until being a stay-at-home mom, I worked in healthcare. I literally cannot help it, and I am 100% useless when someone gets hurt, even having knowledge of what to do. I've given instructions and called 911 from the floor, trying to keep from passing out, when my uncle fell and busted his head open. Just typing this and I can feel the telltale signs creeping in. My first sign is my hands get cold and clammy. I wish I could just get over it, but there isn't anything I can do about it either. I now know in fight or flight I just flop. Changed a light bulb standing on a glass coffee table. Yep, I fell into the table. I had a light bulb explode in my hand once while I was changing it. I've never actually flown from a table before that day. I also don't change many light bulbs. Saw it happen to a roommate and I now wear gloves and safety glasses every time. So far so good, but I'll be damned if I risk changing one without PPE. Besides protecting the hands, the gloves prevent finger oils from transferring onto the light bulb itself. I read somewhere that those oils and their heat capacity can cause variant temperature differences on the bulb, etc., leading to higher incidences of breaking. So I don't take chances there either. I was sitting on the edge of a coffee table that had a glass insert in the center. Laughed at a joke and rocked backwards and fell through the glass. Ended up with glass in my back and my most ridiculous scar. My mother still has the coffee table and it still doesn't have glass in it. Please like and subscribe, and also stay safe. The headrest of our bed was made of solid wood and had curved edges. It was wide enough for a 2-year-old, me, to sit on, and I used to love sliding off it. Well, one night I sat on it to slide as usual with my legs on either side. My leg on the bed got stuck between the pillows and I fell face first on the floor. Got a cut on my forehead which required 6 to 7 stitches. I was holding a Super Soaker reservoir bottle underwater at a lake to fill it up. It slipped out of my hand and shot up out of the water, hit me in my lip and split it open all the way through to the other side. Needed stitches inside my mouth and right below my bottom lip. Got a small scar from it. Burned my arm on the side of an oven tray because I took it out with the wrong hand and had to cross over to shut the oven door. Left an inch-long scar that took a painful 2 weeks to heal. I have a number of these on my biceps from working at a bakery. Was carrying a stack of trays, with oven mitts, and they slid back into my arms. Proud baker scars. When I was about 12, we had a new kitten at home and it scratched my hand. Not deep at all, it was just a kitten scratch. Being 12, I thought it would be really cool to have a scar and kept picking at it for days, on purpose. I'm now 38 and I have a cool scar on my hand. No regrets. I think this guy actually won the trade. That's the most stupid reason you can get a scar. I remember having a very similar thought process around 9. I refused band-aids thinking scars would make me look cool. I'm now 30 and none of those scars stuck. I do have a variety of ones gained in my 20s. I have to put extra sunscreen on those, so joke's on me. Got a fishing hook in the side of my finger. My immediate reaction was to pull away. That was the wrong reaction. Not a big scar or anything, but definitely stupid. Edited to add because it's funnier. I also have a small mark, barely noticeable unless I point it out, on my leg. Friend got a new dartboard but hadn't set it up. What if we just used the box just now? I'll hold it first. Now have a reminder that I'm a moron sometimes. I once decided that shoreline fishing without shoes on was a good idea. Took a step forward while casting and felt something give some resistance on my foot and then suddenly stopped resisting. Didn't think anything of it until my foot started itching a bit, right between my pinky toe and piggy that had none. Decided then, that I'd walk back and see what's what. That's when I saw it. A broken hook head was wedged into the soft, supple skin between my toes. Panicked, I let my stepfather and step-uncle know what had just happened. After they finished laughing, my uncle had me sit down in his chair and propped my foot up on a small ice chest. Initially he handed me some pliers to pry it out myself, something that squeamish, pansy me couldn't stomach doing. I handed him the pliers instead. Something my stepfather was more than happy to tell me was a mistake. He fumbled with it a bit, causing me to twitch about and recoil in some pretty new to me pain that I had no experience in as a budding 14-year-old boy. Pliers in hand, he asks me if he can just rip it out instead and get it over with. I argue, because that did not sound fun. This went on for another 5 or 10 minutes or so, causing my mom to start packing some stuff aside for a trip to the nearest ER. My uncle asks me to dig him out a beer from the other ice chest to my immediate right that was within arm's length. As I was leaning over, I felt the slightest stinging sensation in my toes. While I was distracted, my uncle took an opportunity to just rip the hook head out, using the pliers. Mom was pissed, I was relieved. Thanks Uncle Fox. I wish 14-year-old me was less of a whiny little bitch. Woulda made that entire endeavor far, far quicker. When we were kids, my brother ended up with a little trout hook stuck in his finger. Went to the ER and the doctor just took a toothpick, placed it in the wound enough to keep it open and gently pulled the hook out like it was nothing. Dumb 6-year-old me makes a little tower of pillows, jumps at the tower of pillows, makes wrong calculation of jumping position, and instead of hitting the pillow tower, he hits the headboard. I got a cool scar though. Without permanent brain damage, so it's a nice trade. So I tried to sharpen my right index finger with those small pencil sharpeners in kindergarten. I did the same thing. I was probably about kindergarten aged as well. We had a pet hamster that died, and when my parents told me, I became hysterical. I guess it was the first I had to process death, but in my tantrum I grabbed a pencil sharpener, put my finger in it and gave it a good twist. I have no idea why. Sliced the shit out of finger, which just escalated the entire ordeal. How the hamster died is a story all in its own. So we had this hamster for quite a while and we could always kind of pick him up and he was generally pretty cool about that kind of stuff. Well, as he got a little older he got sick. So my mom was holding him and petting him and trying to comfort him. I guess because he wasn't feeling well, he got upset and bit my mom's finger and her natural reaction was to yank her finger away, except Daniel hung on to the finger just a little too long and ended up getting catapulted across the room until he went splat against the wall. And that was the end of Daniel. He was a good hamster though. My parents were so mortified about the way I handled Daniel's passing that when the cat died the following year they were afraid to tell me. So instead they said that Harry, the cat, went to the beach to live with my aunt, so he could breathe better. Which I believed, for probably longer than I should have. I would occasionally ask how Harry was doing at the beach all the way up to like age 12 when they finally decided to tell me that Harry died 6 years earlier. Here I was thinking this 24-year-old cat was living at the beach all this time. When I was a dumb as shit teenager I thought it was fun to be sitting down, take a bong rip, stand up and hold my breath. This caused me to get lightheaded, which I enjoyed for whatever reason. One time I did this while home alone and held my breath a little too long. I passed the hell out and collapsed backwards, shirtless, onto a large picture frame that I had sitting angled against the wall. The glass from the picture frame shattered into a bunch of long shards, like knife blades, that I landed directly on top of. I remember laying there for a moment, scared that I had completely impaled myself, before very slowly and carefully getting up and walking to the bathroom. I got lucky in that I only had one bit of glass stab me. It left a good puncture wound that left me with a decent scar on the middle right of my back. Another time when I was a dumb as shit, though curious to a fault teenager, I got the idea in my head that I should lick the freezer. Just to see what happens, you know? I was home alone again in that same house, so I just walked up to the fridge, opened the freezer door and pushed the pad of my tongue against the side. To my surprise, it immediately froze to the side. I wasn't expecting it to bond so quickly, but I was stuck instantly, and I could feel it getting worse. So panic mode engages quickly, and instead of trying a single smart idea to get myself unstuck, I have the realization that the only way to fix this situation is to remove my tongue by force. I had to slam my head back 4 or 5 times, each time ripping a bit more of the pad of my tongue off in the process. It was horrible. I left a good square inch or so of tongue material on the freezer wall, which I had to scrape off later. I couldn't eat solid food for around a week, but luckily the tongue heals very fast and it had no lasting impact after around 3 weeks or so. In the act of slamming my head back I also severed my tongue's frenulum on my bottom teeth, which bled like mad. I was 8 and ran into a doorknob. I now have a small doorknob-shaped scar beside my nose. My daughter has a similar story. At 8 she looked at me, said, "I'm going to entertain the cat." I said alright, then watched, absolutely astounded, as she put on a blindfold, ran at full speed through the living room, straight into an outward-facing corner of the wall. She has a Harry Potter scar, a story for life. My dad was deployed. I didn't want to eat as a child because I was depressed and missed my dad. It drove my mom insane and she cooked legitimately up to 6 times a day, but all I would do is cry and ask where dad was. Unfortunately, as a young child I didn't know why my dad was gone. Not that I wasn't told, but I didn't understand what Syria meant. I didn't understand why he wasn't there every morning when I woke up or went to sleep. Eventually, as an isolated woman who couldn't drive, without family or support, she lost her mind trying to take care of me on top of worrying about her husband. She kept trying to force me to eat. Sometimes I'd throw up, I'd always cry. But one time she snapped and she stabbed me in the arm with a fork. I remember the shock. I stopped crying, she started screaming. We sat in the bathroom and she held toilet paper tightly on my arm while screaming over and over, "Why are you doing this to me?" A year later, when my dad returned, I didn't even know who he was. She refuses to talk about it. She thinks I'm crazy, but I have the prong scars and the memory. I was shredding cabbage by grating it over a blade and suddenly found a reddish shade after some time. Turned out I sliced my finger a few grates previously and have been bleeding like a finger hose. It took 4 band-aids to cover the wound, cause 3 got too soggy to even stick on my finger. I lost a bit of flesh and the skin that healed over it still looks transparent. I was 12 at that time. Thank you for watching, and I know it's getting old, but please like and subscribe. I want to grow the channel and make more Reddit videos. Thank you and have a Karen-less day.